may be one choice away from a thriving marriage. Welcome to the Operation Thriving Marriage podcast with Brian and Jennifer Harvey.
So we are back in the studio, and this is an exciting episode of the podcast. We're doing something a little different this time.
We've got some special guests, my friends, and, very apropos, our first guests on our podcast.
Yeah, so this is our first ever podcast interview for Operation Thriving Marriage. So guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hey, I'm Brenda Harvey. I am Brian and Jen's daughter, and I'm also an author. So I'm going to plug myself on Instagram at Brenda Harvey Author and on YouTube at Brenda Harvey.
There you go. All right.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Harvey, the ghost, the host's child. I am 13 years old, and I'm pretty cool.
I think you're amazingly cool. I think you're pretty awesome. So guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You guys have been bugging us that you wanted to be part of the podcast. So this is our opportunity to do that. So before we get into it, why did you guys want to be on Mom and Dad's podcast?
I was just following John's lead.
Oh.
Jonathan wanted to be on the podcast. And he was like, I'm not going to do it unless Brenda does it with me. And I was like, fine.
It's a big sister job, I think.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be on the podcast because, I want to say, hi. Yeah.
So,
all right.
Hi, everybody, from Jonathan Harvey.
Yep.
Right.
Encouraging marriages. Here we go at a very young age.
All right. So what's it like for you guys to be our kids and to have your parents who have a marriage ministry? We talk about marriage a lot at home and stuff like that. What's it like for you guys to be our kids with that in mind?
Well, I know for me what pops into my head is when we were in Italy with my school, I was with my friends at dinner, and I was mildly bragging about my parents. It's like, oh yeah, they wrote a marriage book together, and they have a podcast together, to which one of my friends responded, you know, Brenda, your parents are couples goals.
And that's sweet, yeah.
So that's what I immediately think of.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Gen Z, for saying that Brian and I are couples goals.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. What's cool about it? When you say it's cool, what's cool
because
about it?
a lot of my friends have divorced parents, and you guys actually having a good marriage is kind of cool.
Okay. Yeah. So how does our marriage affect your lives? And if you can give an example, tell a story for us about how us being married and our marriage affects you guys.
Well, I think for me, I've never had a boyfriend, and part of that...
And that's dad goals right there.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I'm not going to date until I'm 30.
Yes.
Perfect daughter. But, I mean,
I thought you had an appointment with the convent next week. Isn't that right?
Yeah, Rose and I are going together.
That's right. Postulates.
But I went to an all-girls Catholic school, so my only interaction with guys was the ones we stole from CC for our shows, and, some of my friends down at the zoo. For me, part of why I didn't get into a relationship in high school is there was no one around. Another part is, I think, in order to date, you need to have some level of a sense of self, so your sense of self isn't, I am whoever I'm dating's girlfriend. So I really wanted to, in high school, develop that sense of self so I wouldn't get into that trap. And another thing is, obviously, seeing how my dad treats my mom. It's like, okay, there are good people out there who actually are going to treat you well, and I'm not going to waste my time with someone who's just going to treat me like an accessory. And I know I've expressed that to a lot of my friends, and they've felt the same feelings.
Brenda's new podcast is Operation Slaying It Single.
So, from what you guys have observed, what's the best thing about marriage? They're staring blankly at each other. They haven't seen any good things about marriage.
This is very dramatic.
Yeah, marriage sucks, you guys. Don't get married.
The only good thing about marriage is that if you got one theater kid and you get another theater kid and they come together, then they produce two musical theater children.
Well, we
That's
do
what
have
happened
that.
to us.
We do have that. Yeah, what can you think of, though?
When a mommy and a daddy really love each other.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's really...
I think that's a
And
different podcast
That's a different
episode.
podcast.
We'll have you
altogether.
come back.
We have episodes about that, but...
I mean, I think marriage, just in general, like any relationship, is a partnership, and marriage really, aside from the Trinity, is the ultimate partnership and something obviously that God wants, and that's why there's man and woman to have marriage and have that connection and have that relationship. So to be able to be a part of that is amazing. And obviously there are going to be people who are called to be celibate. Obviously you have all of like the sisters. Sister Marianne from my school is the best. She was called to celibacy, and that's amazing. But being able to take part in that amazing relationship that God created is awesome.
But if you are married, what do you think to those married couples out there? What would you say is your advice to be the most important thing to be focusing on in marriage?
For me, I don't think I could be the judge of that because I'm definitely married, of course. But I'm not married, so I wouldn't be a good judge of that.
But you've seen a marriage your entire life, and you've got friends who have parents who are married. So I mean, when you think of mom and dad's marriage and how we interact with each other and with you guys, what do you think is the most important thing to think about, or what's the most important thing to focus on based on what you've seen from your friends' parents' marriages and then from ours?
I mean, obviously, our earthly lives, our goal is to be as close to God in a relationship as possible. And marriage should be two people coming together to help push each other closer to God and closer to heaven.
And closer to each other.
Yeah, what I think is really cool is Brenda, I remember specifically when you were like 3 and we were having like a small group over at our house, you figured out really quickly, because it was the group that we were a part of, it was primarily married couples, or we had a couple that was engaged that was involved in the group, and you put it together. Okay, you know, Chris goes with Rhonda, and Todd goes with Bev, and Tom goes with Lisa, and you know, it was just a cool kind of thing, because it's like, okay, this person goes with that person. So I thought that was really, you know, a cool observation at 3 years old. Thank you very much.
So one of the things that's interesting about marriage, obviously, is most married couples end up having children. And balancing out that relationship between the married couple and your relationship with the children. So some people choose to prioritize their children over their marriage. Say, okay, we've got to first, and we've talked about this before, and it's like, hey, we've got to focus on the kids first, and then when they get out of the house, we can focus on each other again. Other couples prioritize their marriage over their relationship with their children. Say, hey, we've got to focus on us first, and then our children second. As children, what do you think is the best way to prioritize relationships? Because one is going to be prioritized over the other. They can't be equal. That's just, it's an impossibility to hold the two things at the exact same level. So which priority do you guys think is better, and why do you think that?
I think prioritizing the marriage over the children, because, I mean, obviously, children grow up. I'm going to be going to college in August, so I'm out of the house for quite a while, and then I come back and then graduate college, and I'm off on my own. Jonathan is going into 8th grade in the fall, so he's getting up there too. And the reality is that shift in priority is a lot more difficult than people think it is. And as you guys have said repeatedly on the podcast, marriage is a partnership. So the best way to parent is to be on the same page. And I know Jonathan and I are very lucky that our parents have very flexible schedules. So we see you guys a lot more than the average family. But in order to parent, you both have to have similar or the same values in parenting, and those conversations have to be happening. So if you're not focusing on your own relationship and building that strong relationship, you're never going to have that good relationship with your children. And then when they move out, suddenly, oh, we're just learning to date again. It's like we're newlyweds again. You're not newlyweds. You have found every single, like they say on TikTok, you found every single ick about each other. And so now that ick, the way...
I've never heard that before.
You've never heard of the ick?
I've heard that one, the ick factor.
The ick. I will explain it. So for those of us who haven't heard about the ick, basically It's typically when a girl sees a guy do something, and normally it's the stupidest thing. It's like, it really gives me the ick when guys dance wildly in a club. Like, guys shouldn't be doing that. It's really stupid. But now, back to marriage, at this point, and when your kids are out of the house and they're graduating, they're moving on to have their own lives, you found every single ick about each other. You hate the way your partner snores. You hate the way your partner leaves their toothpaste on the counter. You hate all of these things. So now...
I think these are all things we've actually talked about before on the podcast.
Oh, keep going.
Now, once your kids are gone, you can't have that honeymoon phase all over again because you're not in that honeymoon era. You're in a brand new era, so trying to rekindle those honeymoon feelings is impossible because you already have all these icks.
And of course, our Swiftie daughter is referencing eras because of Taylor Swift.
So obviously. You've moved out of your fearless era. Let's get into your speak now era.
We'll rename the podcast Operation Thriving Marriage TV, right? So, there we go. So, just in regards to that prioritizing, what do you think the best way is to kind of prioritize things? Like, how do you think that married people should show that they're prioritizing and keeping their spouse the priority over the kids? And of course, prioritizing the spouse over the kids, it doesn't mean neglecting your kids. Don't hear that, because that's absolutely not the case. But how do you have the best marriage that you can have and be the best spouse that you can be in order to raise a healthy family? What are some things that you guys can kind of think of there that you might have seen or experienced with mom and dad? Can be some negative examples too, and that's okay. And or other families and parents and married people that you know.
I mean, I know you guys at least once a week will go on a lunch date, and that's not obvious to me and Jonathan because we're in school. I was like, oh, you guys went out? Okay, good to know. And got to go do my calculus. It's more prevalent, obviously, in the summer. But I know you guys will also go on walks together most days. So having that alone time. When John and I go to bed, you guys watch an episode of a TV show together. So really take the time to prioritize being with each other. And that doesn't need to be lunch dates. It doesn't need to be going on walks in the middle of the day because that's not attainable for a lot of people. A lot of people are working that 9 to 5 and you get home and you're tired and you just don't want to do anything. But take that time, even if it's literally, okay, we're going to prioritize, we always have dinner together. And that could be, if you don't have kids, just, okay, parents have dinner together. Or if you have kids, family dinners every single night. Now, obviously, I'm going to prom. I'm going out with my friends for dinner. Okay, that's a one-time instance. It's not every single hard-on, this is when we have family. But prioritizing dinner with the family has really helped us, I think. And, again, just, taking that time to be with each other. Jonathan, I don't know if you've noticed anything else.
No.
Yeah, 13-year-old has not noticed anything else, but I'm reminding all of the single 8th graders out there, Jonathan did say he's not married, so I'm just saying.
I think it's... Go ahead, Jonathan.
You don't know about my, 40 girlfriends, so...
Oh, okay.
We gotta have a talk, buddy.
Yeah, not sure if he has room for, 41 and 42. I'm just throwing that out there, so...
Gotta teach you that you can't balance that. It doesn't work. But one of the things, though, I think that you guys listening, I think it's interesting. We did not prep Brenda and Jonathan. They saw the questions in the car on the way here and noticed the things that Brenda has noticed in her life and how that's affected her. And it's obvious to her. And we don't, hey, you guys, look what mom and dad just did. Look, we went on a walk. We went on a date. We did this. We're not highlighting it, but we're doing these things and Brenda's noticing that. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important to recognize. And I'm glad you guys are here talking about that stuff, because even though Jonathan can't say, oh, I know these 8, 10, whatever, 5 things affected me, it's that culture around you guys where it's just, you don't know that it's different because this is what your parents always do, but it affects how you've been growing up your entire lives.
And also, I think Brenda, you make a good point. It's like these are examples of prioritizing a marriage, but these aren't the only things, and you can do other things to be able to prioritize a marriage. And your parents definitely don't have a perfect marriage, because no one does. But we like to do what we can do to keep things very healthy and fun and thriving.
And your kids are always watching, even when you think they're not. So be careful what you're doing around them, or just even when they're in the house, because they are watching and they're going to notice if you're being petty about a fight. When you're fighting about the dang toothpaste on the counter, they're going to notice.
We never actually fought about that.
No, that's true.
You
I'm
didn't
just
know that
being
it was.
silly.
You didn't know it was a problem until we wrote the book.
And that was not a passive-aggressive maneuver, by the way, by you. So I'm just saying.
So from your perspective, think about mom and dad, think about your friends' parents and things like that. What do you think is the worst thing parents could do regarding their marriage?
I think the worst thing is divorce.
Okay.
Because 50% of marriages end in divorce, so I think that kind of is the worst thing that can happen in a marriage.
Hang on a second, Brent, because I think that's really interesting, Jonathan. Why do you think, from a kid's perspective, what makes divorce so bad from a kid's perspective?
Well, it would kind of suck to have two homes. You have to go between houses. You have to celebrate Christmas at different houses, and that just would suck. Yeah.
Sounds like it'd just be really disruptive for you. What if mom and dad weren't divorced, but we were just staying together, so you didn't have to do that? What do you think our family would be like then?
Well, we would probably not eat dinner together, like Brenda mentioned. Us eating dinner together.
Yeah.
So we would probably not eat dinner together. Dad would probably sleep on the couch, and just kind of stuff like in Hollywood movies.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, buddy, I'm just trying to kind of summarize for the listeners, what I'm hearing you say is staying together for the kids really doesn't work because it's obvious, and the home isn't really that safe place you want it to be. Is that a fair summary of what you were saying? Kinda. So what is there something that I missed or something that I said too much on?
No.
Okay.
And what I'd say is it's not so much stay together for the kids. It's get divorced for the kids, right? It's stay together for yourselves so that you can build into that godly marriage and just be that couple that God's created you to be.
Yeah. What about you, Brenda? You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was actually going off of that second point, staying together for the kids. I have a friend who her parents' marriage had been falling apart for years, and she knew it. It was obvious. They were consistently fighting. Her dad was not in the house a lot of the time, and just leaving out big details. She did not want to be around her dad, and neither did her siblings. And it was just really obvious that the only reason they were together was because, they're like, oh, kids need a two-parent home, but really that wasn't what they needed. And having this, living basically in a war zone was really rough on her. And she was on a sports team, she was doing drama with me. So when they did end up filing for divorce, I'm not sure if the divorce has gone through all the way yet, but I know it's been in the works. When that finally happened, it felt like a relief to her, because finally she wouldn't be living literally in a war zone between these two parents who really shouldn't have gotten married in the first place.
So it sounds to me what you guys are saying is the worst thing a couple could do is not work on making sure they have a good marriage. And it's not just stay together because that's what you're supposed to do, that's what the Bible says, whatever, but really not making it a focus to have a good, healthy relationship is probably the worst thing that you do.
And I think a lot of couples would be embarrassed to go to couples therapy, but honestly, there's a good chance that's the best thing you can do for your marriage. You don't even need to tell all your friends hey, we're going to couples therapy. Just, okay, we're going to go to couples therapy. Here are our issues. and someone who's literally trained to do this is going to help you work through them. And maybe all their advice isn't going to work for you, and that's okay, but taking that time to go to couples therapy, to be going to church together, to have someone praying for you, is probably one of the best things you can do for a crumbling marriage.
I think Brenda just needs to start doing this podcast on her own.
That's right.
So she's got this down. All right. Last question for you guys. What is your best marriage advice for the people listening?
Have a good marriage and stay together. Not stay together well and goodly.
I love the grammar there, Jonathan. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mrs. Johnson, your English teacher will appreciate that.
Yes.
She loves me. So
She
much.
does.
Definitely.
What about you, Princess?
I've been writing this quote for honestly far too long, but I saw a video that Broadway actress Sutton Foster posted on her Instagram. In the context of working out, she said stronger than her show, and I have taken that so far out of context that at this point it's my life motto, stronger than my show. So you guys need to be stronger than what life throws at you. Stronger than your show. For her, obviously, that's I'm singing and dancing every single night. For you guys, I have to work through, I haven't remembered how to do algebra since I was in high school. I still don't know where commas go for homework. You're working through, your kids are going through crazy. Your work's blowing up, your spouse is leaving toothpaste on the counter. You need to be stronger than all of those things for this marriage to work. So just like stronger than your show, put it on your wall. Stronger than your life, just put it on your wall. Remember, just stronger than all of this, and you will come through it. And remember, pray to God. He's got it under control.
That's right. We have another podcast that talks about spiritual disciplines. So if you want to make sure that you're flexing and building your muscles on spiritual disciplines, feel free to take a listen.
I do want to say one thing. Are you not supposed to leave toothpaste on the counter? I leave my toothpaste on the counter every day.
Totally fine.
So note to
between you and your spouse, so you guys can work that out.
Note to Brenda's future husband: make sure you have the proper storage vessel for your toothpaste.
Could be a drawer. It's fine. Could be on the counter. It's fine. Work it out between yourselves.
Brenda, Jonathan, thank you guys for being part of the podcast. I know you guys listen to us and hear us talk about this stuff all the time and have walked in the middle of coming to visit at the studio and walked in the middle of podcasts that you probably didn't want to hear part of what we were talking about. We really appreciate you guys. Love you. Thank you so much. Those of you listening, we love you. Thank you for listening to this. Let us know at OperationThrivingMarriage.com. Leave a comment on Facebook or leave a review. Let us know what you thought of Brenda and Jonathan taking over the podcast this episode, and we look forward to sharing with you again in the next episode. Jen and I started Operation Thriving Marriage to help couples and churches take marriages from merely surviving to thriving. We've got our book, we've got a blog, and resources for our coaching ministry, and you can bring us out for an Operation Thriving Marriage experience. For more information, go to OperationThrivingMarriage.com. That's OperationThrivingMarriage.com.